Welcome back to BBS mod. In this video I'll cover one of the most important mechanics in BBS mod, forms. So what is a form? Forms are basically the things that are used to display the appearance, for example in model blocks or in morphing. For example, if I change my appearance to the voxel character, it is actually a form. There are multiple forms in this menu that you can use. Let's overview them. So let's start with model form. You go and click any of the forms, you can edit it over here. So once you edit, you can see the properties that you can adjust and categories of properties. So let's start with the general model properties. Here you can change the texture of the model. Models can have only one texture. Then the color. Then we have a pose. You can change the pose of the form like this. These are transformation fields: translate, scale, and rotate. The fix field affects the way previous animation or like the animation from the model affects the pose. For example, we have here two of the poses. We have here two of the limbs that are animated a little bit. So if I change it to 1, they will become completely stiff. And for example, if you would have a running animation, this would also become stiff. But if I change back, they would basically shake again. And the bigger the number, the less influence there is from the original animation. So for example, 0.85, it affects a little bit, and the closer it is to 1, then it completely becomes stiff. Then you have actions. Here you can basically remap the action. So for example, if for the idle animation you don't want the default idle, you can change it to whatever you want, for example to angry, or to breakdance, or whatever. Also, poses have a different context menu where you can basically, if you want, you can create a pose. Let's say normie doing like something like this, basically holding his tummy like as it hurts. You can type in the name like tummy ache, save it, then reset the pose and then pick it again. You can also, for example, copy and create a new one and paste it over here just like this. For all of the forms there are also general options. For example, here we have like hotkey, visible, lighting, display name, the general transform, and hitbox options. I'll overview them later. Now let's talk about Billboard form. It's previously known as image morph in Blockbuster mod. If you edit it, there are a couple of useful features here. So pick textures allow you to pick the texture, color allows you to change, it's basically a color filter. Then Billboard allows you to make it so that it always faces the camera. Crop allows you to crop the image or the texture in the Billboard form, the one that we picked. Resize crop allows you to resize so that the cropped area fits within the one block, basically, like area. UV shift allows you to basically move around the UV coordinates. It could be either like rotation or vertical and horizontal translation. An interesting thing with cropping is that you can mirror the billboards this way. So if the coordinates are negative, you can repeat it as many times as you want. Label form allows you to basically input some kind of text, for example, yo, what's going on? And it would basically it's just text. You can change the color of the text. You can change the anchor. Basically the way it works, for example, if the maximum this is maximum length that breaks the text into multiple lines, you can specify where is the anchor. The 0.5 is basically, the anchor is over here. So for example, if it's 0, then the alt text is gonna go down. If its anchor is 1, then everything is going up. So 0.5 and 0.5 allow you to basically to center the text in the middle, and 1 and 0 allows you to just either move it to the left or to the right. You can also anchor lines so that they would basically horizontally be at the same level, for example. So the label and horizontal label anchor would be corresponding to the anchor instead of being at 0 like here. So something like that. Shadow offset allows you to change the offset of the shadow. For example, if I enable shadow by increasing the transparency, I can move it around. Then there is also background, which allows you to basically like add background to the text. You can also change the offset of the whole like area where the text goes, and extrude so it be like there's more padding to the background element. Next goes extruded form, which is basically like image form, but instead it is volumetric, kind of like similar to Magic of Voxel. So let's say we have, for example, like an icon, a model block, and you can see all of its sides are volumetric, so it becomes kind of like a 3D model rather than just a flat image. However, be careful with the resolution of the texture that you are picking, because, for example, there are a lot of voxels, and I don't know whether it's visible on the screen, but I feel a little bit of frame drop. So yeah, the more pixels there are in the texture, the more there's more definition basically to the more voxels, and the slower it renders. So now let's talk about block form. Block form allows you to render Minecraft blocks as the forms. There are a lot of blocks that you can choose from, and also you should be able to choose from the model blocks, as long as they are just blocks and not block entities. For example, let's say we have snow block. We can change the state of the snow block. So like 6, 4, 8, and so on. For example, another good case to show it, for example, with furnace. Furnace, you can change the direction of where it faces. So I want to change it from north to south, and whether it's lit or not. The block itself won't actually emit any particles, or it will display that it's basically fiery. It's worth mentioning that any blocks that are fluid will not be displayed over here, because they're handled completely different by Minecraft's rendering engine. So yeah, but with any blocks, like for example stairs, you have a lot of options, from like the facing, whether it's top or bottom, whether it's straight or basically it faces its own different direction, and whether it's waterlogged. But waterlogging doesn't seem to do anything, because the waterlogging part, it's fluid, so it cannot have rendered fluid in its block model. Then we have item form, which is basically allows you to render items as a form. There's also a big list of items that you can choose from, for example, like another star. Then you can have, for example, like a shovel, or a sword, etc. Then there's also these transformation options, which allows you to like use the transformation configuration that is used for different kinds of places. For example, ground is when it's rendered as an entity, like when it's dropped. Then third person is how it's displayed in the third person, and etc. Before I can introduce you to the last form, which is the anchor form, let me show you the body parts. So body parts is a feature of the forms, which allows you to add forms to other forms. So for example, let's say I want to add this block to Steve's head. So let me downscale it and move it something like this. So now the player has a block on top of his head. You can add another, for example, body part, and could be like the sofa, and move it, and now you have multiple body parts like this. So where does anchor form comes in? Well, remove and then add, for example, anchor form to left arm, and then I add here a sword. The problem with sword is that it has its own weird configuration. So in order to make it easier for me to control the anchor itself, first I have to, for example, to adjust how sword looks like in its own transformation, then 45 degrees, and now I can control the actual anchor. For example, you see I want so that the main anchor would be here of the anchor form, but it's not yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and then move the sword here, and then my anchor point will be here. Now I can rotate and move around how I want, and the main rotation point that I wanted will be here, while the sword has its own place within the anchor form. Let's talk about form management. So let's say you have a couple of cool forms that you want to use not only in this world, but also when you enter another world and after the game shut down. What you can do is to create a new category. For example, let's say it's cool forms, and then you can move these to cool form. And this would persist whenever you exit out of the world or out of the game itself. One thing to keep in mind is that whenever you edit these forms, and let's say you want like change something like this property, like so it would be more open, the actual form in the form category won't be affected. So you have to copy it again and remove the old one. Before we finish with the episode, I want to show you a couple of miscellaneous form features. So for example, let's say you have this small model. You want so that the POV of the character would be exactly like someone here. So with the hitbox feature, you can adjust the hitbox of the basically on the form and also the eye height. So if I go to the world, my POV becomes much lower, and whenever I sneak, the POV also changes. So if we go into the hitbox by pressing F+B, you can see the hitbox changes for the player. Last but not least, you can also assign hotkeys to forms. So let's say we have this player model with a random pose, and I want to form it to the pose. So what I do, I go to general and then I assign some hotkey. It could be only one key, for example M. So I go back and let's say I demorph myself, and then I press M and I become this character. I can I can demorph myself also in the world by pressing period key, which you can find in the keybinds over here, demorph. So yeah, that's about it with the forms. Forms are really cool in terms of that you can basically change the appearance of stuff in BBS mode. So yeah, see you in the next episode.